Donald Trump is now saying that he wants to knock out the middlemen when it comes to the drug industry. Now, this is in order to drive down the high healthcare costs, and as he made these comments, the stocks of health insurers promptly fell. Now, let me know your thoughts on this move. Do you agree with it, disagree with it? Do you think something else needs to be done with the health insurance companies? It's a big part of the discussion we're having as a country right now. Also, folks, the strange sighting of all these drones over the United States, it's still going on. Some residents in New Jersey are saying they're suffering from symptoms of illnesses, which they say started after they saw the drones. There's some counters to that argument. We'll talk about it. And also, with a month left in office, President Joe Biden is now calling for a ban on congressional stock trading. Biden might try to bring an end to members of Congress trading stocks. I'll be going into these topics and more today. But before we jump into it, last night I released a special report on how the Chinese Communist Party is using fake information, lawfare, to target people in the United States. And this is a big topic right now. I'll show you all a trailer at the end of the show today, but if you want to check it out, the link is in the description or in the live chat for this special episode. You can also go to the link that is showing up on the screen right now, so please consider checking it out. The Chinese Communist Party right now as we speak, it is trying to extend its reach into the United States. And so this is an important topic to know about, right? Now look, in other news, folks, the shares of major health insurance companies, they took a big fall after President-elect Donald Trump announced that he intends to reform the industry. Now, among the companies that saw drops in their shares were UnitedHealth Group Inc, CVS Health Corp, and a whole list of others. And Trump's comments, they come at an important time. This follows the recent shooting death of the CEO of UnitedHealthcare, which is an operating division of UnitedHealth Group, the largest single health carrier in the United States. One of the companies that's being affected by Trump's statements right now. Bloomberg said this. It said that shares of pharmacy benefit managers extended losses Tuesday after Pfizer Inc. Chief Executive Officer Albert Bourla said President-elect Donald Trump is, quote, very committed to reforming drug industry middlemen, and I'll explain what exactly that means. And it's Bourla's remarks following comments from Trump Monday and continued criticism from members of Congress suggest pharmacy benefit managers are unlikely to see relief from political scrutiny during a second Trump term. UnitedHealth Group Inc., its shares fell as much as 4.5%. CVS Health Corp dropped as much as 3.9%. And Cigna Group slid as much as 4.1% after Bourla's comment, saying what he talked to with Trump. Now, it notes as well, UnitedHealth, CVS, and Cigna, which own the largest prescription drug middlemen, also saw their shares sink Monday after Trump criticized the system in a news conference. And these businesses have been blamed by both Republicans and Democrats for driving up the cost of medicine. Now, let me show you first what Trump said during the press conference on Monday. Watch this.
We have a thing called the middleman, you know the middleman, right? The horrible middleman that makes more money, frankly, than the drug companies, and they don't do anything except they're a middleman. We're going to knock out the middleman.
Now, Trump is suggesting there are several issues with the healthcare industry that he plans to address when he comes to office. Part of the issue, right? Part of it's Obamacare, but a big part of it is something a lot of people don't know about. Part of the issue with the high prices of drugs in the United States, part of that has to do with what Trump is calling the middlemen. Now, among the concerns is that groups like pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMSs, have huge control over medication and health care. If you've never heard this phrase before, learn it. Pharmacy benefit managers. These are the middlemen in the healthcare and health insurance industry that basically negotiate prices. They profit massively from it, and by being the middlemen, and they're regarded as one of the reasons for high prescription drug costs in the United States. One of the reasons why you can go to a lot of other countries, even outside of the whole health insurance industry, and you can buy prescription medications for a lot cheaper. A lot of people blame this on the PBMs in the United States. They have huge control over medication and healthcare. They're accused of being a reason why medication in the United States costs as much as it does. And they're accused of creating monopolies within the industry as the middlemen. Basically, here's what happens. Health insurers outsource the management of prescriptions to PBMs. These PBMs then decide which drugs are covered under the insurers. They also negotiate on some of the pricing for those drugs. They get rebates from the manufacturers, and then they keep a cut of that money while passing those on to the health insurance companies. Now, it sounds a bit complicated, but it's very lucrative, and it's a big business. That's been around in the United States going back to the 1950s. Before the 1950s, this wasn't really a thing. Part of that has been created through government regulation, and some people even notice that, well, it technically ties into a for-profit government operation as well. This is a very lucrative industry, and it opened the doors to a lot of other things we have, like medical advertising all over television and the selling of drugs as if they're like cereal products. This is one of the big issues we have in this country with medicine. Now look, with Trump's comments, it's not clear whether he's talking specifically about PBMs. He may also be pointing to the broader issues with the health insurance industry in the United States overall. And in terms of his public statements, he's also been talking about problems with Obamacare. And notably, the way that Obamacare has caused a spike in insurance costs for many Americans. And look, I'll point out, people are talking about the recent killing of the UnitedHealthcare CEO, and many people I strongly disagree. I don't think killing is ever justified like this. Frankly, I think everybody would have issues with some industry and maybe feel victimized by some industry that doesn't give anybody the right to go and kill someone. But the irony of all this is that while people defend the current healthcare system, Obamacare, many of the same people defending it are saying it's so broken that killing is justified. How does that make sense? Now, Trump is saying that he's going to change that because for a lot of Americans, the way it's working is if you barely have any money, you get it for free. If you have a lot of money, you can afford it. But for most people, right in the middle, in the very large middle, you can't afford it. And Trump is saying he wants to change that, looking not just at the system as it is now, but basically trying to reform the entire thing. He wants to change the way that it runs fundamentally. Now, we'll of course see how that actually works, whether he can actually do it. We'll also have to see what he means exactly when he talks about cutting out the middlemen and whether that's the PBMs or something else. But it does seem there are plans around all of this in the works right now as we speak. Now, in other news, a group of 14 people were arrested in Colorado for home invasion. And there are some suspicions that this ties to the apartment raids of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. The focus on this series of arrests, is at Edge at Lowry Apartments in Aurora, Colorado, which you might remember, that exact apartment complex where these arrests just took place was the focus of all these rumors that Tren de Aragua was taking over apartment complexes, something that some officials were denying happened, while a big group of gang members was just arrested there for doing exactly this. Now, Fox News said that police in Aurora, Colorado said the overnight armed home invasion at a local apartment complex that resulted in 14 suspects being detained was without question a gang incident. And it was just before 2:30 a.m. on Tuesday, police were called to the Edge at Lowry Apartments in the 1200 block of Dallas Street for a reported home invasion in which victims were kidnapped, assaulted, the Aurora police said. And as well, the Aurora Police Department Chief, Todd Chamberlain, said that during a Tuesday news conference that 13 to 15 people, mostly males with some females, entered an apartment where 2 people were inside. Police say the suspects took the migrant victims to another apartment at the same location, meaning in the same apartment complex. And at that new location, the victims were threatened and bound. They tied them up, they threatened them. It also says one of the victims, a man, sustained a stab wound, but is suspected to survive. So somebody stabbed this guy, tied him up, and so on. Now, both victims, it said, are still at the hospital for treatment for their injuries, and the police chief there is saying this is without question a gang incident. I don't know which gang they are affiliated with yet. This is Chamberlain again, and he adds, there is a high assumption that they may be affiliated with the TDA, Tren de Aragua gang. But he stopped short of officially declaring which gang in particular was involved because he could not, be certain at this time. Now, to be clear, there are reports going around that the suspects are affiliated with the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. To be clear, the police chief in Aurora did say this is without question a gang incident, but noted that he doesn't know exactly which gang. He did say there was a high assumption that they may be affiliated with Tren de Aragua. Now, this arrest is also important because it brings more credibility to the claim going around that these migrant gangs are taking over apartment complexes in the United States, that nothing really until now was done about it, that they're invading apartment units. You might have seen the photos and videos go around. They've done it before, of all these armed Venezuelan gang members with, assault, I guess you call them assault rifles, AR-15 modeled rifles, and others, going in and breaking into apartment units. Now, the claims are written off by a lot of the big corporate media as being false information, and they said it's, bad that Trump is trying to create all this controversy for these helpless migrants, right? Trump was even fact-checked for mentioning it during a recent interview with NBC. Trump brought this up, saying the migrant gangs are taking over apartment complexes. He was stopped by the interviewer, who then told him the police say that never happened. Well, look, on this point, it's not clear whether the gang members actually took over the entire apartment or whether they just raided one of the units or whether they've raided a few of them, because these arrests took place on a recent police call and there's evidence that others like this have happened. But regardless, the case will likely be significant in bringing attention to illegal immigrant gangs and the issue of crime tied to them. Trump has notably said that deporting criminal aliens, illegal immigrants who also commit crimes while they're here, will be the first in his program for mass deportations. Those are the individuals he wants to deport first. And so once he comes into office, we'll probably see a lot of reports around what they've actually been finding. Now, look, in other news, the House Administration Oversight Committee released an interim report on the protests and riots on January 6, and they're requesting now an investigation into former Representative Liz Cheney, who was the vice chair of the January 6 Select Committee. Now, this House report states, quote, based on the evidence obtained by the subcommittee, numerous federal laws were likely broken by Liz Cheney, the former vice chair of the January 6 Select Subcommittee. And these violations should be investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI. They say that evidence uncovered by the subcommittee revealed that former Congresswoman Liz Cheney tampered with at least one witness, Cassidy Hutchinson, by secretly communicating with Hutchinson without Hutchinson's attorney's knowledge. They note this secret communication with a witness is improper and likely violates 18 U.S.C. 1512. Such action is outside the due functioning of the legislative process, a member of Congress, and therefore not protected by the speech and debate clause. It notes the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the FBI, must also investigate Representative Cheney for violating 18 U.S.C. 1622, which prohibits any person from procuring another person to commit perjury. Now, this is the official report from Congress now, recommending criminal charges related to the way that the whole investigation at the congressional level was carried out into what happened on January 6. It does appear that Donald Trump, the president-elect, shares similar views to the need for criminal prosecutions of the investigators. He said during a recent interview with NBC's Meet the Press that members of the January 6 committee deleted evidence. He was fact-checked on that. They said that there's no evidence, they deleted evidence. You believe which side you want. But he said, quote, for what they did, honestly, they should go to jail. That was Trump. Watch this.
They deleted and destroyed a whole year and a half worth of testimony. Do you know that I think those people committed a major crime.
Sir.
And Cheney was behind it. And so was Benny Thompson and everybody on that committee. For what they did, honestly, they should go to jail.
Now, in response to Trump's statements, Liz Cheney said in a statement, according to the New York Times, that, quote, here is the truth. Donald Trump attempted to overturn the 2020 presidential election and seize power. And she added this was the worst breach of our Constitution by any president in our nation's history, and stated Donald Trump's suggestion that members of Congress who later investigated his illegal and unconstitutional actions should be jailed is a continuation of his assault on the rule of law and the foundations of our republic. Now look, we'll see what happens. Donald Trump has said recently, he personally, as the incoming president, he does not plan to personally order an investigation into this. He's saying the choice on whether to investigate, whether to look into the January 6th committee and anything they might have done or anybody else tied to the whole thing with January 6th, he's saying this is going to be not on him, but instead up to the Department of Justice. It's going to be up to whoever takes over the Department of Justice and whoever takes over the FBI, possibly Kash Patel because he is the nominee. But with the House now recommending criminal charges on this is important because if the House of Representatives is recommending charges, not Trump, it's possible the new Department of Justice may pick it up. And at the same time as this is happening, with about a month left for President Joe Biden's term in office, there's also the possibility that Biden could issue pardons. Some people are requesting Biden to do so. As things currently stand right now, Biden is not giving any sign he's going to do that. He has issued quite a lot of pardons already, but not on these things. Also, some have argued that if Biden were to pardon members of the January 6th committee, it could actually damage the integrity of their investigations and the entire January 6th narrative they've framed. Because basically it would mean that they're framed as guilty of what they're accused of, and that would really cause damage to the narrative. So a bit on both sides in terms of where things could go. Now, like in other news, those of you who've watched Crossroads for a while now know that I've been talking about the Chinese Communist Party's role in the global drug trade. The CCP is heavily involved in the drug war against the United States. You might know I've been talking about this for years, and guess what? It's finally coming out. I've mentioned the CCP supplies the precursor chemicals, the synthetic drugs to the cartels, and that the Chinese Communist Party also does the money laundering for the Mexican cartels. They actually supply a lot of the weapons as well, even though they blame it on the United States. Well, guess what, folks? It's all coming to the surface. A Chinese national was just sentenced to 10 years in prison for laundering money for the Mexican cartels. They finally got one of them, or a few of them actually. This is from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Northern District of Illinois. It says a federal judge in Chicago has sentenced a Chinese national to a decade in prison for laundering $62 million in illegal drug proceeds on behalf of traffickers in Mexico. It notes that from 2016 to 2018, Hai Ping Pong schemed with others to launder up to $3 million per month in drug proceeds, money from drugs, using secretive money pickups in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and other parts of the United States, followed by a series of currency swaps between the United States and China and Mexico. It notes that Pan played a significant role in the money laundering process, using his international finance expertise and relationships with members or associates of Mexican drug cartels to facilitate the clandestine flow of drug money through businesses and banks around the world. Importantly with this, some of the money laundering is done by the Chinese agents through casinos in Canada. A lot of it goes through Chinese Communist Party banks. And keep in mind the CCP monitors their banks much closer than probably any other country on earth, meaning it's happening through a permissive nature of the CCP. The CCP is allowing this to happen, and I'd say even coordinating it. I'll get into that in a sec. But back to this release, it says, the illicit proceeds ultimately were remitted to the traffickers in Mexico, meaning they gave some profits back to them. And numerous other money launderers were convicted as part of the federal investigation, including Pan's co-conspirators Xianbing Gan, who was sentenced to 14 years in prison, and Huan Xinlong, who was sentenced to 5.5 years. Folks, it's all coming out. The case is bringing attention to the broader Chinese connection with the drug war targeting the United States. For the CCP, this is war. The government argued in its sentencing memorandum that, quote, the defendant was a significant part of a recent phenomenon in which a relatively small network of Chinese money brokers based in Mexico have come to dominate international money laundering markets. They are the money launderers for the cartels. There you have it. Now, personally, I'd say this case is very likely going to be the first of many. Trump is saying he wants to even use the military and special ops to go after the cartels. He wants to designate them as terrorist groups, and he's saying that any government that tries stopping him, he's going to expose their ties to the cartels and drug trade. Meaning, try to stop me, I know you're all guilty, right? That's what he's basically saying. Now, the CCP's role in the drug trade is becoming a lot better known also. As I previously mentioned, drugs and the Mexican cartels, they tie into an open plan from the Chinese Communist Party to wage what it openly calls drug warfare against the United States. The programs for this was started under former CCP leader Mao Zedong, who modeled it after the British Opium Wars. Mao ran the initial operations through proxies in Cuba. Cuban agents then spread it throughout most of Latin America. But that has since been expanded into large-scale criminal networks all throughout the region. The goal of this is to wage a type of unconventional war against the United States to corrupt and kill American youth. They're doing this intentionally. And it's not an exaggeration. In fact, according to the CDC, fentanyl, which mostly comes from China, fentanyl killed 74,702 people in the United States last year alone, 2023. The year before that, 2022, fentanyl killed another 76,266 people in the United States. The death toll of the CCP, right, has been around these levels year after year, what they're doing to the United States. And for the Chinese Communist Party, again, this is a form of warfare. It is killing Americans on the scale of a war. And it's effective, unfortunately, and profitable for them. Now, look, in other news, the strange sightings of drones over the United States are continuing. And among the stranger cases that's coming out now is that some residents in New Jersey are saying they're suffering symptoms of illnesses which they claim started after they saw the drones. There's some counters to this. I'll be talking about this after we come back from a quick break. We'll be back in less than 60 seconds, so don't go anywhere.
Experts agree. One of the best ways to protect against financial uncertainty is to diversify your portfolio. Learn how physical gold and silver can secure your retirement funds from today's economic challenges. With a gold IRA from American Hartford Gold, you can safeguard your wealth with no penalties or taxes when you transfer your current qualifying retirement accounts. Call now and our precious metals specialists will send you a free information kit, no cost or obligation. American Hartford Gold, a trusted industry leader with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, has a 5-star rating from thousands of happy clients. Whether you are getting physical precious metals in a gold IRA or delivered to your doorstep, we offer only the highest quality gold and silver. For your peace of mind, we also offer a no-fee buyback commitment, a low price guarantee, along with free shipping and free insurance. So don't wait. Call the number on your screen today and secure your financial future.
Welcome back. Folks, the mysterious drone sightings over the United States, they're continuing. People are starting to get freaked out. More rumors are spreading, and U.S. officials are trying to calm everybody down right now. Now, among the stranger cases that's being reported is that some residents in New Jersey are now saying they're suffering the symptoms of illnesses, and they claim that these illnesses have started after they saw the drones. Daily Mail said this. It said residents in New Jersey and the wider tri-state area claim they have become mysteriously ill after seeing drones in the sky. And it's after witnessing or reading about the devices, residents revealed how they started coughing, suffering from blocked or runny noses, or experienced puffy, watery eyes. And it's one woman in New Jersey said she became so sick, it felt like she was coughing up my lung. While a second in New York City said her blocked sinuses must be because of the drones over Staten Island. And notes that DailyMail.com heard from another New Jersey resident who said they had developed a stuffy nose and swollen runny eyes after drones flew over their home. Now it notes as well, doctors told DailyMail.com after reviewing some of the symptoms that it was extremely unlikely these sicknesses were linked to the drones. They pointed out it was now the start of flu season, and other illnesses like COVID, RSV, and norovirus have become more common around this time. Meaning, people are seeing these things around the beginning of flu season. You could blame it on the drones, I don't know. But also it's kind of normal for people to have flu symptoms around this time of year also. So you believe which side you want. Now, rumors around the idea that the drones may be looking for radioactive material, that also got amplified after reports came out recently, you might have seen it, radioactive medical equipment has been reported missing in New Jersey. Reports say that when the vehicle shipping the device reached its destination, they opened up the container. These devices were supposed to be destroyed. The container with them was damaged and there was nothing inside. Now it says, according to the official alert, let me show you what happened, folks. The devices shouldn't pose much of an issue. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission Operations Center stated in this official alert, which I'll show you, that the source is, quote, unlikely to cause permanent injury to individuals or contain a very small amount of radioactive material that would not cause any permanent injury. In other words, it probably would not warrant sending out swarms of drones looking for it. The amount of radioactive material that went missing is likely not even enough to seriously harm a single person, at least not long term, unless they sleep with it like a teddy bear or something. Look, in addition to this, though, a lot of other things are happening. U.S. officials are saying that many of the drones that are being reported are actually aircraft or stars. They're alleging that only a small handful of the reports seem to be related to the actual mysterious drones that are sparking the concerns. Reuters reported that many of the reported drone sightings that have gripped the U.S. appear to be of commercial, hobby, and law enforcement drones, as well as aircraft or stars. And notice that U.S. officials said this on Tuesday as they moved to bolster more areas and with more detective capabilities. They're putting systems in place to detect the drones. And notes that fewer than 100 of the more than 5,000 reported sightings in New Jersey and other northeastern U.S. states merit an investigation. Officials said at the U.S. Defense Department, U.S. Homeland Security, FBI, and the FAA said. Now, I've actually heard this from some of my sources as well, and this is what I've been told. There definitely are some mysterious drones flying around. These are credible. This is actually happening. There are cases like this, without a doubt. The issue that's happening, though, is that people are getting concerned when they hear that, and what's happening is that people who have drones are putting up their own drones, like hobbyist drones, to go and look for the mysterious drones. Police are sending their drones up, average people are sending their drones up, and they're looking for the mystery drones. People are then seeing all these drones from the hobbyists and the police, and they're reporting these drones. And so it's being amplified, and you have a mixture of the actual elements of concern and a lot of false concerns also, just because people are seeing normal drones. That's kind of the way things are being amplified right now. On the point of the drones, it does seem the U.S. government is concerned about it, though. There are increasing reports on it. Biden actually responded to it. He's saying there's nothing to worry about. We're not getting any answers on what exactly they are still. Also, federal authorities are asking people to not shoot the drones. I'm watching all y'all. They're saying don't shoot the drones. Also, don't hit them with laser pointers. Again, part of the issue with that is that some of the drones people are seeing are actually like actual aircraft or just commercial drones. But folks, again, the mystery is still going on. In other news, though, with about a month left in office, President Joe Biden is now calling for a ban on congressional stock trading. And AP said this. It says, President Joe Biden endorsed a ban on congressional stock trading in an interview that's being released this week, belatedly weighing in on an issue that has been debated on Capitol Hill for years. And he said, quote, nobody in the Congress should be able to make money in the stock market while they're in Congress, Biden said. And notes as well, the interview was conducted by Faiz Shakir, a political advisor for Senator Bernie Sanders, and published by A More Perfect Union, a pro-labor advocacy and journalism organization. Now it notes, the Associated Press reviewed a video of the interview before its release as well. So we assume this is accurate, that Biden actually said this. Now, what Biden is bringing attention to is important. Stock trading among members of Congress has been receiving a lot of public scrutiny. People are saying, well, folks, you make about $100,000 a year. How are you worth like tens of millions of dollars after a few years in office? The math isn't lining up, right? And what that ends up bringing attention to is stock trading a lot of times. The issue is a lot of members of Congress, they can create legislation, they can create laws, they can delegate funding, and because they're the ones with the eyes and ears on the ground with where money's going to, they can see which industries are going to benefit from the laws and spending that they're allocating. They tend to have insider knowledge on which companies are going to win or lose. And because they have insider knowledge on, again, which companies are going to be affected by what they are doing, because of this, some of them are given a degree of immunity on insider trading. They're not given complete immunity on insider trading. It's a certain degree of it. There are some punishments to an extent, but it's not really enforced. And because of this, it's become a big point of public scrutiny. In fact, if you go on X, there are stock trading accounts that tell people what members of Congress are investing in or pulling investments out of, and you have investors just doing whatever members of Congress do, and they're getting rich off it. Now, look, we'll have to see whether a ban on this actually goes through, but it is significant that Biden himself is backing the practice to come to an end. And, one of the points that's been brought up by members of Congress is they don't necessarily make a lot of money. They make good money, but in terms of business and in terms of probably their capabilities, they could make a lot more money in the private industry. And so many of them argue if they want to actually make money while in their roles in office, they find it necessary to engage in stock trading. Some people would argue, well, if you are doing it for money, maybe we should have term limits so you can go and make money in the private sector and not do it, through what's really insider trading. There are some different arguments on this, but it is interesting that Biden is bringing it up now. And even within Congress, there's been a lot of scrutiny on it. Biden bringing it up is important because you already kind of have some bipartisan backing to get rid of it. The problem is, look, who controls the legislation? It's members of Congress. Who would this impact? It's members of Congress. And who's going to vote for a large part of their income to get taken away, right? Probably not many people. That said, folks, let's jump into some questions. Hit the like button, leave a comment, and let's talk. So let's see here. Look, what do y'all think about the drones? I'm curious. And I'm also curious, what do you think about this whole idea of getting rid of the middlemen on the insurance industries? I know there's been a lot of discussion about health insurance lately because of this recent shooting. And I've been kind of surprised to see that there are a lot of people like almost endorsing killings. I strongly disagree with this. It kind of reminds me of like early communist systems where they wanted to like kill the landlords and stuff. It seems like class warfare to me. I don't support it. But I do think there are legitimate areas and problems within the way the system works that can be reformed. And I think it's interesting Trump is bringing some of that up. The middlemen, which he talks about, and changing it through legislation, not violence. Let's see, first off, from Zagu. I can't say your name. He's saying, did they actually try to excuse this has been happening all the time? People are just now noticing on the drones? Well, okay, look, we've talked a lot about these mystery drones. Based on what we're seeing right now, we're not really given clear answers on what it is. The government is saying that many of these are manned aircraft, meaning that they're manned aircraft, meaning they're technically not drones. They're also saying that these are not foreign adversaries, meaning they're domestic actors, meaning it's either the government, the military, or an extremely wealthy, extremely capable private citizen with swarms of large drones. I don't know. The other possibility is it's those dang aliens. Right? It's one of those. But the reality is we're not being told right now. And, you do have the issue of what they've been talking about with these UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, which the military has been raising for quite some time. You have some individuals pointing out that around this time of year for the past couple years, there have been mysterious sightings of these similar aircraft over Langley, and given one of their main bases, and given that they kind of anticipated this to happen again this year, only now it's in multiple areas, and there seems to be a lot more of them. Now, again, we're not really being given answers on this. I've tried to keep it as practical as I can on this show, just showing you what some of the rumors are and showing you some of the possible evidence around those rumors or against those rumors. The real reality is we really have no idea. To your point, though, the military and government, they have been releasing a lot of reports lately on what they call UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. A lot of people think as soon as you say UFO, they think you're talking about aliens. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means there are things seen in the sky that we don't know what are. We don't know what they are. And, they have been reporting this for a while, to be fair. Judy Akeem, you're saying, isn't the insurance companies also insane? Putting huge price tags on cheap medicine and forcing companies to pay extra fees? I fully agree, but I would say that who do you blame for that, right? Is it the companies that you blame, and is it the CEOs that you blame, which is kind of what a lot of the mainstream media is ironically doing right now. Does it justify the killing of CEOs when government legislation cleared the way for them to do exactly what they're doing? In fact, when it comes to the middlemen who negotiate the prices, that works through like some pseudo-government agencies. It's a for-profit government operation. Now, who do you blame for that? Well, do you blame the individuals running the businesses that have been formed through legislation in this country going back to the 1950s? You know what I mean? Do you blame the legislation? Do you blame the system as it is? Because who you blame determines what you try to reform. I would actually say that the way a lot of the arguments are going, a lot of the people claiming that the killing of this UnitedHealthcare CEO is justified, which I strongly disagree with, by the way. A lot of the people saying that it's unjustified or that it's justified are the same people calling for single-payer health care. They want to see health care reform because they want socialized medicine in the United States. That's why they're criticizing it, I would say, for a lot of them. Now, the irony with the argument they're making is that a lot of the same people who are saying that are the same people saying there's nothing wrong with the healthcare system as it is right now. So how can the system be perfectly fine, but also be so broken that they believe it justifies violence? Because remember, what is the current healthcare system we have right now? Obamacare. We currently have Obamacare. The people saying the system is broken are the same ones defending it. And so how does that logic line up? If they believe it's so broken that killing is justified, then why not get rid of Obamacare and look at reforming it? The reality is they'll admit that it's broken. They'll admit that it doesn't work. But when they want to defend the broken system, they'll claim that it works. There's a conflict within the statements here. You see what I mean? Now, I would personally say the problem with the health insurance industry and the healthcare industry will not be fixed by single-payer health care. I would personally agree the healthcare system in the United States is deeply flawed. But if you move directly from a flawed system to a socialized medical system, single-payer, you don't get rid of the elements that are broken. You don't actually fix what's broken. All you do is institutionalize a broken system. You don't get rid of the things that are causing the problems in the first place, right? All you're doing is subsidizing the things that are messed up. Now, the point Trump is making, right, as he's pointing to the things that are messed up, he's pointing to the organizations that have been established that are not very well known, that work as the middlemen to negotiate prices and create a very large for-profit system between the health insurers and the drug makers. And notably even tied in with a lot of the pharmacies, which are part of the whole system as well, creating a monopoly around a handful of pharmacies and these organizations. You have a broken system with a monopoly that makes a huge amount of money that is able to do this and is partially subsidized by the American taxpayer through Obamacare. Is the solution to subsidize it more? Or is the solution to go back and reform it so that it's no longer broken? You tell me. The high cost of medicine is often blamed on that negotiating middleman process. And it's interesting how Trump is pointing to that as the thing that needs to be fixed to fix the healthcare system. Now, on that point, how many of you who used to have health care remember how much health care costs before Obamacare? Now, some people would argue, well, Obamacare gave health care to millions of new people, in particular people on like social services or welfare or whatever else, or illegal immigrants, all those needy people from every corner of the world, right? It gave free health care to those people. For the average person, though, Obamacare is so expensive that it's almost unaffordable. They call it the Affordable Care Act, but who can afford it? Who is middle income? I mean, honestly, folks, tell me, how much do you pay for health care every month? I know people who pay like a good chunk of their income for health care. If you want to have it, it's really not affordable for middle income people. Like, it's insane how expensive it is. The only way you can get around the high cost of healthcare is if you work for a big business, because the big corporations, they can have packages and so on, and then it's more affordable. But for people who are like self-employed or small business owners, or for people who work in general contracting or whatever else like that, they have to pay it themselves, and it's crazy expensive. It's like insanely expensive. It used to be that you could get Blue Cross Blue Shield for like a family of 4 for correct me if I'm wrong, like a couple $100 a month, maybe even less than that. I heard people now spending like $2,000 a month for like 2 people. I mean, it's crazy how much it costs. And so I don't think that subsidizing a broken system is going to fix it. Subsidizing a broken system is just going to institutionalize a broken system. And at least that's how I view it. That's how I view it. Arij G86, you're saying the question is why were gang members allowed into the U.S.? Why was not procedures done, putting us all at risk? Yeah, you're talking about the Tren de Aragua gang and the rumors that they're taking over apartment complexes in Aurora, Colorado. Well, this is an issue that was brought up recently and is a big part of the debate with this in the U.S., is that we do know Department of Homeland Security is aware of a very large number of criminal aliens. In fact, large enough that it represents a decent percentage of the illegal aliens who've been allowed into the country. A lot of them are criminals. I don't want to give the number, but it was, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was in the double digits though, right, of the known criminals. And so, the issue is, if you allow criminals into the country and you don't deport them, what do you do? Now, part of this goes back to the way the sanctuary city systems work. What is that? And a lot of people don't really know what sanctuary city actually means. When they hear sanctuary city, you think that they're just not deporting illegal immigrants. What that actually means, a lot of times, is the local governments forbid the police from working with ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, right? ICE would be in charge of deportations. ICE has the international databases on individuals. The police do not. The way things used to happen is if an illegal immigrant commits a crime, if they drive drunk, if they rob a store, if they hold somebody at gunpoint in Times Square and rob them, they get arrested, they get held for a bit, police find, hey, we don't know who this person is, we don't have their files because the domestic systems don't have information on international people. ICE has those systems, Immigration Customs Enforcement, so they have to hand these individuals off to ICE. ICE can look and identify this person. ICE can hold them accountable. They can deport them and make sure these individuals who are illegal aliens not only get deported but also face criminal charges. What the sanctuary city programs have actually done is prevented the police from handing criminals to ICE. And so the sanctuary city programs are actually not about protecting normal illegal immigrants for deportation. It's particularly about protecting criminal aliens from deportation. And the effect of that is that it's very hard for police to charge or detain illegal immigrants if they commit crimes because they have no way of holding them accountable. Unless they incarcerate them indefinitely, there's nothing they can do. Because they say, okay, whatever you say your name is, I know you're driving drunk without a driver's license and you just ran somebody over, But we can't identify you, so please show up for court at whatever address you claim to live at, which we can't verify, and hopefully you'll show up. And the guy says, okay, I might. I might not. And that's that, right? Maybe not if they kill somebody, not if they drunk drive and kill somebody oftentimes, but that's kind of the way the system works. And so unless they, to be honest, unless they like kill somebody, unless they commit a major crime, if that happens, they can face charges because they can't actually hold them. But anything short of that, it's really hard for police to do anything about it. And that has been part of the problem created through the sanctuary city laws. And, you know, to your point on why is this even allowed to happen, it's because of this and because it's being facilitated, you know what I mean? Martin McKenzie, you're saying full spectrum warfare as per Art of War. I believe you were referring to the drug warfare programs and the Chinese agents involved in laundering money for the Mexican cartels. Yeah, actually, if you read the doctrine, Unrestricted Warfare, it was written by two Chinese colonels as more of a hypothetical system, a recommended system of war. One of the individuals went to the private sector later. One of them actually is really high ranking now within the Chinese military. That doctrine is what a lot of defense experts point to as kind of a model of the type of warfare the CCP is waging against the United States, which, as Martin suggests, is full spectrum warfare. It means you're using every part of your government and every avenue of reach into a country as a weaponized system. If you actually read Unrestricted Warfare, they list drug warfare. Drug warfare is listed by them as an official doctrine of war. They regard it as war. And I've mentioned this book before. It's called Red Cocaine. It's written by a man named Joseph Douglas. It's out of print. Unfortunately, if you want to buy a copy, it's really expensive. Last I checked, you can find PDFs online for free. It's out of print, so I don't have much of an issue saying that. But that book actually documents really well the history of how the CCP started the drug war against the United States and the CCP's ideas of why they were doing that. The drugs in America are part of a warfare system being waged heavily by the Chinese Communist Party. And they're killing Americans by the tens of thousands every single year doing it. Zachary Newman, you're saying, how about a discussion on why the Biden administration is selling steel and other things to the border at pennies on the dollar? That's a good discussion. I did have a segment on that earlier this week. Was it yesterday or Monday? My sense of time's messed up. For those of you who missed that episode, Daily Wire had an exclusive report. They verified it. It seems credible to me. Basically, what is happening right now is the government is auctioning off unbuilt sections of the border wall. You have these, they call it the Bollard Type 2, I believe, sections of the wall. These big, huge, beautiful American steel, sections of the wall that have, money. Basically, here's what happened. Before Trump left office, he was trying to get the money and the clearance to build the border wall. Remember back in 2016, that was one of his big campaign promises. We're going to build the wall. That was the big campaign promise, right? There was a lot of red tape in the way. Congress blocked it. They said it cost too much money. Why are you spending money on this? The border is already secure. Why are you spending money on this? It's like the Berlin Wall, only instead to keep people out, or keep people in, you're trying to keep people out. That was the narrative, right? They blocked the money for it. They challenged it every step of the way. Finally, before Trump left office, he got the money for it. They got the sections for the wall. Everything was set to be built. Then Biden came into office. They did not finish building it. And the result of that is you've had money allocated to build it. You have the parts already purchased sitting by the unbuilt sectors, sitting there waiting to be built. And they're just sitting there collecting rust. Now, with Trump coming back into office, many believe that he will continue the building of the wall because they already have the money for it allocated. They already purchased the parts. The parts are physically there, and all he has to do now is put them in the ground. That's all they got to do. And it turns out now that somebody within the government is taking these sections and auctioning them off on government auction websites. And so we can say we don't know who is behind it per se, but we do know that the sections of the wall are in fact being auctioned off. The starting bid for a very large section of a wall is $5. And that's, to say pennies on the dollar is an understatement. It's like nothing. Now, Trump called that out directly. He's criticizing this action. And also Texas right now is actually trying to buy up the sections of the wall through the auctions so that once Trump comes back into office, they can just give them back to the Trump administration and they can finish building the wall. But that does seem to be what's happening, right? Now let's see here. Michael Hickey, you're saying, knocking out health insurance will cause major issues with unions, so massive strikes. Yeah, in no way am I talking about getting rid of health insurance. I'm talking about health insurance reform. Trump is also saying that. He's not talking about getting rid of health insurance. I think in this country there's two different directions for the argument. Some argue for single. I think everybody, ironically, can agree that Obamacare isn't working, right? If you have a lot of the corporate media debating on it, they'll defend Obamacare tooth and nail. They'll defend it to the end of the line of their lives. They'll defend it with everything they've got. And in the same breath, they'll say the system is so broken that they believe it's justified to go and kill the CEOs of health insurance companies, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It either works or it's broken. And they suggest that it works fantastic and then say that it's ridiculously broken kind of in the same breath. I think that the logic fallacy here is incredible. But what a lot of them do want is single-payer healthcare. They want the type of socialist medicine you have in like the Nordic countries, which Bernie Sanders is big on, or in Canada and so on. Some people point to the problems in these countries as well, where in Canada the cost of living is so high that some people are getting, medically assisted suicide made, not because they have health issues, but because they're too poor to live. They can't afford to live in the system because cost of living is so high. Medically assisted suicide is now one of the leading causes of death in Canada. It's crazy. It's like 1 in every 20 deaths now is assisted suicide. And a lot of that is economic death. They're killing themselves because they can't afford to live because of the amount of money it costs to get by. Now, you could blame a lot of them on the socialist system, which is why, notably, they're having a breakdown within their government right now, right? Trudeau might actually step down because of some of the pressure. But there are people saying we should adopt that system too. Now, the other argument is on Trump's side and on the side of many Republicans, where they're saying that privatized healthcare drives prices down, it creates actual competition within the ranks, and allows companies to compete, and you're going to pay a lot less. Maybe instead of paying $2,000 a month for healthcare, you're paying like $100 or $200 a month, right? Some say even that's not enough because we have a discrepancy within the quality of health, and a lot of people on government assistance can't get it. And the other argument for that is, well, not only do we need to privatize healthcare, but we need to fix what is broken within the healthcare system. And this is where folks like myself come into play, where I would acknowledge the healthcare system is broken. And it doesn't just have to do with the health insurance system. It has to do with the way the system is set up. I would blame it on cronyism and on interventionist policies. The state interventionism within the way that the drug industry is regulated, the pharmaceutical industry, and the way that maybe it's not regulated, where they're allowed to mass advertise on news outlets and so on. I believe that we have created a lot of problems through regulation, subsidies, and middlemen. And some of that does tie into public-private partnership and, again, government subsidies, which drive up costs. I would point again to classic Austrian economics and the issues that always come about with what they call state interventionism. And I would blame the high healthcare costs on state interventionism. The prices can be driven down massively if you actually address the causes of the problems rather than the symptoms of the problems. Because unfortunately, at least the way I see it, a lot of the debates are on the symptoms, not the causes. A good analogy for the problems with modern medicine in general, I would say, by the way. And that's where my argument comes in. And so I find it interesting going back to Trump and what he's talking about. When he's saying he wants to get rid of the middlemen, I would say personally, in my own opinion, I believe that actually would get rid of one of the causes of the problems. Not all of them, but one of the big ones. I'm curious, I mean, do you all folks agree with me, disagree with me? You know, when I do this show, I don't want to be absolute on things. I'm always open to new ideas, but do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments, right? California gal, you're saying, wasn't opium used against China as warfare, possibly alcohol against Native Americans, etc.? Yes, that is accurate. The history that ties into the history of the opium wars. I have a bunch of books on it. I've studied this pretty in depth. Basically, Europe, mainly Britain, they wanted to trade with China. At the time, China was under its last dynasty. It's a funny story. The trader, not traitor, the trader who went to China to meet with the emperor at the time, he sailed in, he brought a bunch of gifts and items, you know, basically saying this is what Europe has to offer for trade. On the boat, he had written on the side, gifts from the Red Barbarian or something like that, because he was like a red-haired guy, and Chinese regarded Westerners as barbarians at that time, right? So that's what they wrote on the boat. He goes and he meets with the emperor. He fails to properly kowtow. The way you're supposed to bow to the emperor is you like bow down and you slam your head on the ground, like you have to knock your head on the ground. He didn't do that part. He just bowed normally, and they took that as a bit of an insult. He then showed all the items he brought. He brought guns, he brought an inflatable hot air balloon, he brought a few other items. The Chinese looked at it and said, basically, we don't need any of this. This is all, by our standards, this stuff is junk. You have to remember at the time that Chinese craftsmanship was regarded as the best in the world. The stuff the Europeans were making was not desirable to them. They didn't need gold. And one of the issues you had was that this was the real issue. When it came to international trade, Europe and a lot of other countries, you know, the Grand Orient and all this stuff, they didn't have anything that China wanted. And so the only thing they were able to trade with China, because they wanted tea, they really wanted Chinese tea, mostly because they had not yet discovered it in India. The only thing they could trade with China was gold and silver. And the result of that, it was draining the gold and silver reserves in most of Europe. And they were getting, you know, a disposable product in return for it, tea. You know, tea doesn't circulate within your economy after you drink it, right? You typically throw it out after a couple of times you brew it. And so it was draining the resources of Europe because of the demand for Chinese tea. They tried trading with the Chinese. The Chinese didn't want anything from them other than gold and silver. And so they looked for other things. Private industries, not necessarily the governments, although there was some involvement. Private industries then found, hey, they like opium. We can trade them opium. Disposable product for disposable product. And opium being highly addictive worked very well, unfortunately. And so they started the opium trade. China began having drug problems. They tried cracking down on it. It caused civil unrest. Then Europe invaded China. America was not involved with that. America did not get involved in the opium wars, although it was later blamed for it. That was not the United States. That led eventually to the collapse of the last dynasty of China. Shanghai was given to some of these individuals involved with the opium trade. Actually, it was Jewish families built Shanghai. Hong Kong was given to the British, although that was part of other deals and so on. And China, the Chinese dynasty came to an end. That was the opium wars. It is true that Mao Zedong modeled the drug war after the opium wars. And so Mao Zedong, because this wasn't ancient history in the early 1900s, right? This was recent history for a lot of them. And so he modeled the drug war against the United States after the opium wars. And it's important to note also that until the Korean War, the Chinese Communist Party acknowledged that America never invaded China. America never waged war on China. We never did any of that. We briefly occupied eastern China after the end of the Second World War, mainly because we pushed out the Japanese. But we, unfortunately, really unfortunately, America had the effect through the occupation of preventing the Kuomintang from fighting the Chinese communists, and to an extent allowed the Chinese communists to win. If we bear any sin with it, it was that, that we actually helped the Chinese Communist Party win and take over China. It's a really terrible part of history, in my opinion. But anyways, yes, without a doubt, that was the form of war that Mao modeled it after. And noting as well that alcohol with Native Americans, some people say that disease killed the Native Americans. A lot of that happened long after the settlers came in. Really, alcohol was one of the big things that harmed them the most, though. And many people do point to that. Gary Long, you're saying, Josh, the middleman has not only been in medicine, but in almost everything we purchase today. Let's get rid of all the middlemen. I would agree. Actually, I do believe that middlemen, you can make some arguments for it, that people buying in bulk and conducting trade, that allows for international commerce. People who do import-export allow people in this country to buy goods that you would not be able to buy otherwise. Right? I think there's some argument for that, because international commerce is supported by what are technically middlemen, people who buy huge bulk of product and then distribute that to stores and warehouses, which then creates kind of the market we have. To an extent, I agree with it. But also I would say that without a doubt, as Gary suggests, there are middlemen within a lot of industries that do have the effect of driving up prices. And in many of these industries, it's not necessary. My problem is not so much the free market, because I believe that import-export with free market, it's in the interest of people to sell as cheap as possible based on market value. And what often prevents that would be, I would say, state interventionism. When you have subsidies come into place, when you have interventionist policies come into place that inhibit the free market from doing that. I'm not saying I'm an absolutist on this. I believe there need to be some restrictions on some businesses. In particular, I don't think food companies should be able to put poisonous chemicals in our foods. I think that should be regulated. I don't believe in the absolute free market with the ability of companies to poison us. I don't believe in the absolute free market when it comes to pharmaceutical companies advertising on media and so on. I think there should be some regulations around that. I think there needs to be some, cigarette companies advertising to kids. I don't think that should be allowed to happen. I think there needs to be some regulation for it. But I do believe that oftentimes when you have subsidized industries, it does interfere with the free market in very serious ways. I don't believe that's absolute either, though, because, for example, take rare earth minerals, take key components we might need during wartime. Some of those do require state subsidies because they may not necessarily be profitable, but they're necessary for the industries. They're necessary for our weapons and our country to function. There are some exceptions to it. And so while I do recognize the problems, I'm not absolute on many things. I do believe there's a middle ground on most issues. All right, folks, that said, join me tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be on the road, Crossroads on the road yet again, starting tomorrow and also on Friday. But we will still be doing the episode, so join me live from my hotel room, wherever I am for the next couple days. And again, we'll have some great stuff to talk about. That said, please leave a comment. Don't forget to hit the like button. It does help us quite a bit when it comes to the algorithms and so on. And that said, folks, thank you so much for being here. One sec here. I think we have one more thing. Real quick, before I forget, we do have a special feature up. I almost forgot. We do have a special feature up on the Chinese Communist Party's program right now. Basically, here's what the CCP is doing. It's waging the three warfares against America. It's creating false information, feeding this to puppet journalists and puppet, YouTubers and so on, having them report it, and then using their reports as ways to try to trigger legal investigations and so on. The CCP is doing this to try to export its human rights abuses to the United States, to suppress religion. The main target right now is Falun Dafa and any company started by Falun Dafa practitioners. But that's just the beginning. They're demonstrating the ability to use this against America. I have a special feature out right now exposing exactly what's going on, the Chinese military programs behind this strategy, the leaked documents, the leaked communications. This is an extremely important feature. If you haven't seen it yet, we do have it on Epoch TV. We'll also be airing it tonight on YouTube and on Ganjing World at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And so check it out again tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for those premieres. And I'll show you a trailer before we head out. And folks, that said, thank you so much again for being here. Please take care of yourselves. And as always, stay informed and stay free. Thank you. Leaked communications within China have revealed plans at the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party to export its human rights abuses outside the country. And this involves a whole-of-government strategy running from within the CCP, which in turn uses its networks of influence in the United States to carry out these operations.
You get influential people in another country, in your target area, to do what you want and to create these narratives that suit the Chinese communists.
If you can persuade the media persuades the public drives the political action.
This is a blueprint. This is a blueprint for how the CCP can weaponize our media, our government, our legal system to go after any company or any group they want to.
It's really gone global. Political warfare has, in a way that, quite frankly, we've never seen.